Hey there, lovely. This is a short announcement to let you know I'm taking a break for all of July over the Australian school holidays, and I'll be back in your ears in August. I'm recording this episode rather than simply disappearing from your podcast feed, partly because I value this space so deeply, and partly also because so much of what we speak about here on Represented is connected to sustainable commitment. Racial equity work requires care, which is one of the most fundamental aspects of sustainable commitment. We need to care for our bodies, our families, our capacity, the quality of the work we are creating. We need to care for the communities we are speaking into and the people who are impacted by the choices we make as business owners. One of the things I never want to model through this podcast is false urgency. I never want to contribute to the idea that we have to constantly produce or comment and react and constantly be visible in order for our work to have meaning. In fact, you'll notice I've hardly shared much on social media this year. And not that there's anything wrong with social media. If you're using it and you love it, by all means, go ahead. But I'm in a season where I just feel pulled away from it. And the more I'm away from it, the more I feel whole. Like I'm not feeling like I'm missing out on anything. I actually feel more whole and more, um, maybe complete is not the word, but whole is. I feel a lot more whole. And so I'm going to keep honoring that and see how long I can go without having to be on there. And so I'm taking July to pause, uh, primarily on this podcast, so that I can regroup. I'll be spending much needed time with my husband and my kids, and I'm hoping to return with a kind of depth and care that I want this podcast to continue offering you. Before I take this short break, I'd love to share a beautiful podcast review I received from Mel. It's on Apple Podcasts if you want to read it or see it for yourself. It genuinely moved me and I was surprised. Like I wasn't looking, but I came across it and it was there and I was like, huh, somebody's left me a written review. And I want to read it to you so that you can hear what Mel wrote. She said, this podcast is incredible. It's refreshing to hear such thoughtful conversations led by a woman of color, which brings authenticity, intelligence, and heart to every episode. The topics are meaningful, and the perspectives shared are both empowering and insightful. You can really feel the positive impact you are making through this work. Well done, Annie. Mel, thank you so much. I cannot begin to tell you how much that means to me because sometimes, Mel, it can feel like there's no impact. But deep down, I know there is. And this is the evidence, especially in this current climate where conversations about race, inclusion, and equity are being pushed back against in so many public and also private ways. So thank you so much, Mel. Now, leaving a review like Mel did makes a real difference. If you've been listening and haven't had a chance to do so, or it feels like it's too complex, I'm just too busy, have a lot going on, it just feels like it's too much. Can I just take this moment to say it isn't too much? And there is a link in the show notes that you can just simply click on. It'll take you to the place where you need to leave a review on Apple. And I'd really, really appreciate that on Apple Podcasts. Now, while I'm away, I want to encourage you to use the archive. You know, there are over 100 episodes that you can tune into to support you, depending on where you are on your growth journey. What I have found to be so helpful for me, because one of my ways of consuming content is through podcasts, is when I listen to an episode and then I go back and listen to it again and potentially even a third time, that information just sinks in a little bit deeper. It's like when you're learning a topic that you might not be familiar with, you get to hear it and then you begin to understand it a little bit. But then when you hear it again, it deepens even more. And so whilst I'm away, I'd really love to encourage you to go back, have a look at any episodes that kind of speak to you, and go in, listen, and see what happens for you. And I'd love to ask you to please share the podcast with one other person in your business community. Maybe it's a friend, a client, or part of a community that you're part of. It's one of the most generous ways you can support this work. It helps more online business owners find conversations that are not happening enough in mainstream business spaces, but absolutely need to. It also helps the podcast become more discoverable, and in doing so, supports these conversations to travel beyond the people who are already here. Lastly, my friend, this podcast is just one way I support you. If you'd like to get my support personally, my 10-week program that I have been running for over 5 years called Represented is where we go deeper. We move from listening and reflecting into practical implementation within the space of community. So you're not doing this one-on-one, we're doing it together as community. And I have found that this work deepens so much more when we're together as a group. And within that space, there's accountability and the kind of support that feels personal to where you are right now. It's for online business owners who care about racial equity, who want to build safer and more inclusive spaces, and who know they don't want to do this work alone. Or this might be you. You've pushed it to the side for far too long and you're just feeling a tagging, like you're being called back into it. So if this podcast has been helping you think differently about your business, your leadership, and your responsibility in this current climate, I'd love to invite you to join the waitlist for Represented. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you once again for being here, sharing this space with me, for every message and conversation you have started because of something you heard here. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I'll catch you in August. God bless.
We are represented. We are represented. We are represented.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave a review so this podcast can reach more online business owners, and together we can begin to normalize racial inclusion in the online coaching space. I'd love to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where this podcast episode was recorded, the Wiradjuri people in central New South Wales, Australia. Music produced in Nairobi, Kenya by Patrick St. P. Mbaru and Kambua Mathu. Vocals by Joanne Matata.
Represented from coast to coast.